Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Angels and Destiny show. Why is this show called this, you may ask? So I'll tell you. The accepted meaning of angel is messenger, and the accepted meaning of destiny is to make firm establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And of course, I like working with angels and the calmness they'll bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Isabel Guerriera. And I know I've butchered her surname, and I do apologise in advance. But before that, I would like to say thank you so much for watching the show live at a later date, as it means a lot to both of us to connect with like-minded people. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Ray, and I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I'm a spiritual guide and healer who is passionate about helping you reconnect with your divine presence and step into your purpose. Now, through angelic reiki, angel oracle cards, guided meditations, and exploring past and future lives, I support you in healing your past and creating a soul aligned future. Now, my journey has taught me that with the right tools and guidance, we can all connect with our higher selves, embrace transformation, and live a life full of abundance and fulfillment. Now, each episode of this show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or an angel oracle card reading with the wisdom and wonderful guests, like today's guest, Isabel, about how astrocartography can help you align your location with your soul's purpose, uncovering the places where you're most likely to thrive in life, love, career, and personal growth. Now, Isabel is an evolutionary astrologer and astrocartographer who helps people discover the places in the world that align with their soul's purpose, personal goals, and unique needs. Now, her work blends deep astrological wisdom with self awareness and empowerment, offering practical, grounded insights that help people live with greater intention and clarity. Now, with a background in education, writing, and research, Isabel has a gift for making astrology and astrocartography accessible to everyone, from curious beginners to seasoned seekers. She's passionate about translating the cosmic blueprint we're all born with into real world opportunities for growth in love, career, creativity, and personal fulfillment. And I'm really looking forward to diving into this fascinating topic with Isabel today, because it's something that I've always been interested in. And I get a chance to talk to somebody about it today. So, without further delay, hello, Isabel, and a warm welcome to the Angels and Destiny show. How are you today?
Hi, thank you for having me, Ray. I'm doing great. How are you?
Not too bad. Hot here in the UK, and obviously hot where you are over
Very
in
hot. Very hot in Spain. Very, very hot.
yeah. So if we in the UK thought it was hot, it's hotter over there.
It got to 40 yesterday. So 40
Too.
Celsius.
Oh my
Very
God. My God. So before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Isabel and I want to be part of this conversation. So please do not be shy. So Isabel, why don't you tell us more about your journey and how astrocartography can help find our soul's location?
Sure, yeah. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about how I got into astrology first, because that is what led up to me finding out about astrocartography and kind of just like incorporating it into my own life and all of that. And so I discovered, like, I really started getting into astrology. It's actually funny. A friend of mine in college, in our first year of university, when we were about like 18 or 19, she showed me this horoscope app. And at the time, I thought nothing of it. But then I'm the type of person, like, I guess I have a Scorpio stellium, I have a lot of Scorpio energy. I love to investigate, I love to dive deep into things. And I was like, oh my God, I want to learn more about astrology. I was like, this is really intriguing to me. It was something really intriguing. And I was like, the horoscopes are interesting, but I was like, they're vague. I was like, I want to understand, like, what's this birth chart and what does it mean for me? And what does it like, what could it tell me about my life and my relationships and just everything? And so over the years, over several years, I started like basically teaching myself astrology at first, both through the internet and through books. I purchased different books and I went to my university library and started reading lots of books about astrology that I managed to find there. I eventually took a couple of courses, got certified, and then yeah, I decided to start reading charts for fun, and then eventually I turned all of this into kind of my own business. But the way I got into astrocartography was very different. And so what happened was in 2015, so it's 10 years ago, I went to Morocco. I studied abroad. And it was my first time traveling by myself. Like I had traveled internationally, domestically. I'm from the US originally. Um, I had traveled with friends and family, but I had never traveled on my own. So it was like a big milestone for me. I was 21 going on 22. And just upon getting there, I felt like this like energetic pull, and I really really like, as the time went on of me being there, like I felt very deep connection to the place, and I formed relationships there that were very 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 deep and very special. And then at the same time, when we had a couple of days off from our program, a group of friends of um a group of friends of mine and I, we went to Spain, and that was my first time in Spain. We took the boat to Spain because you could take a boat from northern Morocco to Spain. um, and I felt that same vibe in Spain too. Like it was just like a feeling. Like I couldn't describe it at the time. And then a couple years later, I went to Portugal. And like I think 2 or 3 years later, I went to Portugal, and I had that same feeling. And I had just been thinking about it for years. Like, why am I so drawn to this part of the world? And I kept trying to go back. Like, if I had a vacation off of work or anything off of school, I would try to go back from New York to these places. And I was like, so drawn. And then I just was like, okay, there must be an explanation why. I was like, I need to know why I feel so drawn to these places. And I just started doing some heavy research about like locations. I was like looking into, why are we drawn to specific locations? What is it about certain locations that feels amazing versus others that feels terrible? Because I had also remembered that there were locations, like I think I had gone to the Bahamas and I had a really bad experience.
Mhm.
And I was like, why are some locations so amazing for us and why are others not? And throughout my search, I finally eventually came across astrocartography. And I realized that it was a subdiscipline of astrology invented in, like, founded in the 70s by a man from the US named Jim Lewis, that basically theorizes that your birth chart relocates when you move around different parts of the world. And it doesn't mean that your original birth chart is not your birth chart, but it just kind of tells the story of the experiences you would probably have in that location. And then there's the whole thing with the planetary lines. And the planetary lines represent the different planets that fall on different angles in the birth chart. And there's four angles in the birth chart, and they all represent a different area of life. And so I realized that Morocco, Spain, and Portugal were all my moon descendant line crossed through all those countries. And the moon is about like emotional needs and support and connection, like deep connection. And the descendant angle is about relationships. And I just felt very impactful relationships in those countries. I was in New York, like I was single forever. And then in these countries, like I was meeting more people, dating more and stuff. And I eventually met my fiance in Spain, where I would end up moving. Um, and so I was like, wow, like I was onto something. I was like, wow, like this really explains why I'm so drawn to this part of the world. And my moon is in Libra, which is a very typically more relationship. It's a Venusian sign, relationship oriented sign. So I was like, wow, this all makes sense. And then I said to myself, I'm gonna like learn astrocartography, I'm gonna master it, and I'm gonna use it to choose where to live, because I love New York, like I'm from there. But I felt like I really wanted to move to this part of the world. I was like, there's really something for me here. There's a lot energetically that feels much more supportive. And I ended up deciding to move to Spain because I knew the language. And my IC which shows like it's the angle in the chart which shows the relationship that you have to a location, and whether or not you feel at home there, kind of the associations with that location. My IC is in Cancer in Spain, and Cancer rules the home, rules family, rules like a sense of belonging. And so it just seemed so aligned. And I've been here now 6 years later, and I feel like, life. I really like how my life is unfolding here, and it's not perfect. There's no perfect location, absolutely, but um, this tool really helped me, and it just came. I came across it on like, I don't want to say like on a whim, but one thing led to another, one and another and another, and then here we are. So yeah, that's kind of my story about how I found it and everything.
Wow, it's yeah, it's interesting. I like the way you say it's not um, perfect, because otherwise people literally would just be going where they were. So did you? I take it because obviously you're from New York. Did you actually look at if there were any lines in New York for you?
Yeah, what's interesting? I didn't have any lines within the lines are in, like, the theory is that in the lines are not felt unless they're within 700 miles. It was Jim Lewis was American, so I don't remember what that is in kilometers. I'm sorry, probably about.
I work in miles, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, in miles, it's there. The lines are not really felt if they're not within 700 miles. So I don't have any lines, but I do have over there a Paran, which are the horizontal planetary crossings, which are typically a bit weaker than the planetary lines. The planetary lines, the energy tends to be felt more intensely. But I have a Chiron Saturn Paran in New York. And so I don't know how familiar you are with astrology, but Chiron comes from Greek mythology, sorry. And Chiron in astrology, deriving from Greek mythology, is the wounded healer. And so it's like the legend of the wounded healer that was able to heal everyone else except for himself. And so Chiron in our chart speaks to our deepest like emotional wound, like what we've really struggled with throughout our life. And so Saturn is also challenging. It is a malefic planet. It's associated with having to wait for things taking time, restriction, uh, karmic lessons. And so when you combine the energy of Chiron and Saturn, um, the way it played out for me in New York was that childhood was all right, but adolescence was so difficult for me there. I had a really hard time in my youth, and it did make sense because if I'm Saturn ruled, my rising is in Capricorn, and Pluto was in Capricorn during my high school years, and plus being on that Chiron Saturn Paran, all that influence of Saturn and Chiron, especially being that I'm Saturn ruled, like I said, my ascendant is in Capricorn. It was really rough for me. And I have to say, as I got older and into my early 20s, mid 20s, things were getting a lot better. But there was a lot of there was some pain associated with the location, and I I wanted to just start over.
Mm.
I wanted to start over. I wanted to be somewhere that my soul felt more comfortable in. Um and New York wasn't all bad. Like, I do miss that in my birth chart there I have an 11th house stellium. So I did feel a bit more social there and open. I think here my stellium shifted to the 8th house. So I have become a bit more guarded and more reserved in a way, but the way I feel is so much more comfortable, so much more at peace, like internally. Like, maybe it's growing up, getting older, passing my Saturn return. I think though I'm glad that I did the move, that I made the move, and I'm glad that I didn't go through my Saturn return in New York where there's all that Saturnian influence. It was a lot lighter here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you said your stellium moved. What are stelliums and do they move?
Yeah, so a stellium in astrology, it is when you have three or more planets in the same sign and in the same house. So, like, if you have three or more planets, let's say in the sign of Libra, then you would have a Libra stellium. If you have three or more planets in the fourth house, fifth house, 10th house, whichever house, you have a house stellium. And so when we look at relocated versions of our charts, if you have a stellium the way I do, I have a stellium of, I believe, 5 planets, which is a lot in Scorpio. The stellium will move because your angles will change. Your birth chart angles, your ascendant changes. So that means all the rest of the houses are in a different order. So that stellium shifts. So the focus of life could really change from one place to another.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting because you kind of like think your birth chart is kind of like fixed. If when you hear about birth charts, it's like, yeah, this. But then we're saying when you add the location, then it can actually change.
Yeah, like the way I look at it is like you never really lose your original birth chart because it's still like it's your blueprint, right? Like it's the moment you were born, it's so unique to you. But what the relocated chart does is it puts in that birth data as if you were born in that other city. So the signs tend to be the same for most things, like in terms of the planets, but the angles change. And so that does have an influence on how like your experiences play out, on how life plays out. It just kind of I look at it as like the birth chart is who you truly are, but the relocated chart, it tells the story of your experiences in that new location. If does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. So, when people come to see you, I'm guessing you can sort of like look at through if they say, oh yeah, I lived here, then I lived there, lived there, lived there. You can actually see how their life mapped out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, it's so interesting. I I recently had a client maybe about a month or two ago. Um and uh she was also from New York, but had relocated to Texas, and she was on a Pluto IC line, and she had so much challenging energy around home and family, that whole area of life. There was a lot of energy with Pluto being there, a lot of energy around loss, transformation, having to lose things to kind of build up again. So I was like, did you go through like, I asked her simply, I was like, did you go through like a major life transition here, like in terms of your family? And she was like, yeah, like I got married here. I had, I think, one or two children, and then we divorced here. And then I met someone new very quickly, and that's so typical on Pluto lines, that rapid evolution, that rapid transformation of going through like times of kind of upheaval and loss and rebirth. And so I've seen it play out. I've seen these type of scenarios play out with so many clients. That's just one example. But yeah, it tells a whole story, astrocartography, because what I like to do, the way I approach it, is I'll ask a client, they'll have an intake form beforehand. Because most of my clients are remote. Because I am in Spain, and a lot of my clients are in the UK and the US and Canada primarily. And I'll be like, I want to know, where did you grow up? Where have you previously lived? Where do you live right now? Where do you plan on going potentially? Where do you plan on traveling? Because I want to see the whole, how they have evolved in terms of their locations. What has changed? What has stayed the same? What types of experiences have they had? And what can I gauge simply by looking at their astrocartography? And then when I talk to them about it, without me even knowing who they are, I didn't know that woman, had been divorced and married and all of that. But, you know, um, that this tends to happen. I tend to be like, yeah, did something like this happen? and then they'll be like, yeah, I went through this experience and that really aligns with what you're saying. And yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And for anyone who I can see we've got watching, if you've got any questions you want to ask about astrocartography, then please do feel free to ask. You've got somebody here who can answer those questions for you. And Ernie says ready to relocate.
Nice. I know the feeling. I knew the feeling. I remember back in 2019 when I was about to move, and I was I was waiting to, have a job lined up at the time. I was so nervous, and it finally fell into place, but I know the feeling. I was so ready too.
So I'm guessing then that if you're offered a job somewhere, that you can actually use the astrocartography to actually see whether you should take that job or not, whether it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, you could use this stuff for so many things. You don't even the thing I think a big misconception that people have with astrocartography is that you need to automatically move to get those kind of experiences. Not necessarily true. Let's say you have a business, right? Any kind of business, whatever, an online, but it has to be an online business in this
Yeah.
case. And you find a location that, in terms of the astrocartography, is very supportive for publicity and business and networking. You don't need to necessarily go there. You could go, let's say my happy place for business is in Thailand or something. I could find Facebook groups in Thailand and promote there and have a higher chance of success because of that. And if I've used it with my business, I've used it to get clients. And I have found that the places that are better for me business wise in terms of astrocartography, I've gotten like more clients or more, at least more leads, more interest. So you don't need to necessarily move there to activate that energy. Um, I mean, obviously, yeah, the moving there in terms of like your living day to day life, yeah, it's probably better to move there. But I'm saying, like, if you want to activate maybe meeting a partner or making more connections business wise, you could just find those locations and network with people on the internet, because we've got this amazing tool these days, the internet, that could be used for good and evil, but
Yeah.
it could be really, really helpful, if you know how to use it, you know?
Oh my God, that is so fascinating. And Amanda has joined us. Hi, Amanda. Good,
Hi.
good to see you here. So, that's what I think is so great about this. I'm listening to is the fact that nowadays you don't physically have to relocate to actually reap the benefits of knowing where you are supposed to be. And that's a game changer for finding clients.
Yeah, for a lot of things, honestly. A lot of things. And even like I tell clients, because I have clients that are like, oh, I really want success in my business, but I'm actually doing well where I am. And I'm like, well, why don't you go on a business trip? You know, go visit. You don't need to necessarily move there forever, but you just want to activate that energy. And I find that a lot of the times, like that energy, it gets activated pretty quickly, you know? So it's really
Oh,
interesting.
well, that's interesting. So you don't necessarily have to move there. Just going to visit a place can actually change the energy.
Yes. I mean, think about it. Like, I don't know, have you traveled a lot in your life? Like, have you?
I've travelled Peru, Mexico, Morocco, um, Spanish Pyrenees. So I've done a lot of
So
trekking.
you've traveled. So would you agree that every place feels different.
Yeah, and I will say
The vibe, the experiences, but even just the energy feels different. Some places probably feel better than others.
yeah, I mean, Peru and Mexico. I mean, Peru was a turning point in my life anyway. That completely was a life changing trip, and yeah, Mexico I loved. And I have to admit, going to European this sounds really weird, but going to European towns or like the places like Ibiza and those places, like those holidays never really have done it for me. It's kind of like been more of the off the beaten tracks like Peru, Mexico, mountains, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, it probably could be explained by astrocartography.
Mm. Yeah, this is it's so fascinating. So what else can you use it for? I mean, obviously you talked about you can because I know Ernie has mentioned about been single for 4 years and want to change that. So you don't necessarily have to move somewhere else. You, as you were saying, you could just go online and look for people in the area that your astrocartography says your that would be the best line for relationships.
Yeah, yeah. And I've had clients do that and have some success. I mean, obviously, then you have the component of, okay, now we're long distance. That's an added layer of a challenge, but it's like, still a way to potentially find that someone, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
A
no,
tool. And then maybe that person will want to move back where you live, or maybe you'll like that place so much that you'll want to move there. And or maybe they'll want to do long distance. It's just, it's not feasible for everybody. I think not everybody could do it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think I could.
You're just following your astrocartography where it's taking you to where it,
Yeah, and I met my partner here on my moon descendant line, which makes a lot of sense because my descendant in my chart, my descendant angle is ruled by Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. So it makes so much sense. Um, I happened to just kind of travel here, and that worked out. But and I live here now. But yeah, you can meet those people online, just in those locations where your astrocartography says that it's, yeah, that you would probably be most likely to find love in that location.
yeah, it's interesting. So so I'll take it this is one of the so this is one of the four pillars. So we've sort of like done relationships work, and what were the other two?
So yeah, um business, I would say, so many things, like feeling more at home, feeling more settled, because some places we see in astrocartography are quite good for the short term, but then people tend to start to maybe feel stuck there or restless. And then there's also locations that we could look at, especially when we look at the IC, what sign is the IC in the relocated chart. That can give us clues about, is this place supportive for the short term or the long term. So it could help us find just long-term living places to live in the long term in general, that don't feel so unstable, that don't make us feel so restless or stuck. You could use it to find like a kind of a sanctuary, like a spiritual escape, like retreats. um you can use it for, yeah, to even you, there's a timing incorporation. There's timing that you could look into. Like, I always like to look into the transits that are currently happening for a person, their solar return chart for the year, their progress chart, to see, like, okay, maybe this location is supportive for what they're looking for, but maybe this isn't the moment, maybe this isn't the best moment. Also for finding community, because I find there's definitely, sadly, in some parts of the world, especially in the West, I think there's definitely like a loneliness epidemic going on. And a lot of people, especially clients I work with in the US and the UK, complain about this the most, that they really want more friendships, more community, more like just being surrounded by more people and more genuine relationships. And so there are indicators that you could look at for that as well, for finding community, supportive friendships and things like that. So you could use it for to activate creativity as well. Like I've worked with people who are artists, writers, creatives, who they feel where they currently are, that their creativity has been a bit stifled, and they want to kind of reactivate that. So it's pretty interesting.
Oh my God, it's just so just so fascinating. So again, um, so so Amanda says, how do you know where? So that's a good question. So how would you go about creating an astrocartography chart?
Okay, so I do it very like thoroughly. I don't like to skip any steps. Um, because it's very multi-layered. So first of all, the first step I do is I look at the person's original birth chart. Why? Because the original birth chart is going to tell me about who they are. What's their vibe? What's their personality? What are their needs? What do they need out of a location? What kind of person are they, basically? Um, and then I also look at in their chart, what planetary lines would be the most supportive versus the least supportive. Um, and how do you look at that? You have to look at the condition of each planet, luminary. Luminary is the sun and moon. The luminaries are the sun and the moon, and then of each planet and luminary and celestial body in the chart. So not all of our planets are equal. So what I mean by that is, like, different planets manifest so differently in different signs. Like um moon in Taurus feels very comfortable in that sign. Moon in Cancer moon is very comfortable in the sign of Cancer, for example. But if you think about moon in Scorpio and moving to a moon line with moon in Scorpio, it could be very, very, very intense emotionally living there. So I look at the condition of each planet, luminary, and celestial body in the birth chart to determine which lines are going to be most supportive and which ones aren't. And to know the condition, you have to like know which sign that it's in. You have to see what house it's in the birth chart, as there are certain houses that are happier for planets than others, whether it's in retrograde, and the aspects it's making with other planets. Like, is it making squares and oppositions, which are more difficult, or is it making trines and sextiles or conjunctions, well, conjunctions are a mixed bag, but trines and sextiles are more supportive. And so I look at that first. And so then I have an idea, okay, this is what the person needs. These are their best lines. And then in each location, like where they live, where they're planning on going, um, locations that I find on my own for them, I look at the planetary lines, the Paran crossings, and the relocated chart to get the whole picture. So a lot, um, a lot of that. And so then I write a whole report with my interpretations for each location. Um, and then, yeah, on a live reading, I discuss what I found. And then the client can ask, questions during, at the end, whenever they want. Um, and yeah, and different planetary lines are associated with different experiences. So like I don't like to generalize, because like I said, a Venus line, a moon line could be really good for one person and not be so good
Yeah.
for the other. But typically, when we talk about stereotypically speaking, Moon lines, Jupiter lines, and Venus lines tend to be more supportive for love, especially if they're on the descendant, because the descendant angle is rules relationships. You know, um, Jupiter and Venus lines, as well as sun lines that fall on the midheaven on the MC, tend to be most supportive for career. Um, and then, um, like when we talk about like self growth, self evolution, for some people like Neptune ascendant lines, um, Sun ascendant lines, Jupiter ascendant lines. Um, Sometimes Uranus could be supportive. So it really depends on like how are those planets in that person's chart to see what line is best. Because for one person, a Venus line could be fantastic for love, but for another person, maybe their Venus sign is not in a supportive. Maybe their Venus is not in a supportive sign, and then that makes it maybe for them a moon descendant line would be better than a Venus line. Does that make sense? I know
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit technical, but
Yeah,
yeah.
no, 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 no. That makes sense. So whatever you were looking for that you wanted in your life would be the best way of looking as to where those lines were.
Yes, exactly. And also in the relocated chart, like, okay, how is their house rulership in the chart? What's their relocated ascendant? What's their relocated IC? What's their relocated descendant? What's their relocated midheaven? Do they have any stelliums? Where are all their planets in the new chart, in the relocated chart? What area of life is it activating? Is that in alignment with what they're looking to attract? And that's how I do it.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so. I was just going to say, and Amanda has taken the words out of my. That's deep research. Yeah, I mean, and it's quite nice rather than just your astrology birth chart. When you actually go in and put all the other layers in as well with the astrocartography in there.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
it,
lot. It takes me hours to do a reading. I did one this weekend for a couple, and you have to imagine finding a location for that suits two people is difficult.
yeah, I can
So
imagine.
difficult. It's difficult. 'Cause you really have to go really deep, and sometimes like I was lucky because of they put a bunch of places on a list for me, and I managed to find one that was good for both of them. But out of like 8 places,
Wow.
So it's tough. If it's for 2 people, it's tough. But it's possible, but you have to imagine, for one person it's already like a lot of research, but then when it's a couple, it's like, wow.
Oh,
And sometimes
yeah.
I've worked with families, whole families, and that is like a whole other level
Oh,
of
I can imagine that would be, and I suppose that parents, especially, well, I mean, especially if a parents have got two children, and they
yeah.
want the best place for both children to grow up in. Oh my God, that must be a nightmare.
Yeah, and you know what? I find that a lot of people, like, I really think not enough people are looking into this for their kids. I think I wish my parents had looked into my astrology more as an astrocartography, astrology, whatever, both as a child, because y- y- a location for a child and just the environment you put them in makes such a difference. And I've worked with clients who have told me, like, my kid is having a hard time here. But I think they're a bit reluctant sometimes to get readings for their children, maybe because they feel like they're not, maybe it doesn't feel like consensual, like they're
Yeah,
not getting because it's a child. But I'm like, I look at it so differently, I look at it as like this is really for them, for their benefit, you know.
yeah. No, that makes absolute sense, and I know, you know. I'm a big one, as I've always saying, that there's, meditation should be taught to pregnant women and then teach the kids, the babies in school, etc. And astrology and astrocartography would also be beneficial, as well, because those children would then grow up so much more rounded, and developed, that they'd have
Oh,
less issues.
certainly. Certainly, I agree. Because you could see in the birth chart in general, you can see how they learn best, their learning style, their emotional needs, especially when it comes to from their mother. Um, you can see their communication style, their interest, so many things from the chart. Um, like a friend of mine had a baby and booked a chart reading with me, and there were so many things she was like, I didn't know that you could know all this from a chart. Like, and I was like, no, you really can. You really, really can. I mean, it's insane. But, and the other thing is, you could even, with astrocartography, there is another layer to it called the local space lines. Those can help you find your best neighborhoods. You could even get down to the neighborhood level. And I have found that to be one of the most accurate things because for example, like I've lived in Spain for 6 years almost. In August it will be 6 years. And I've lived in many different places within the same kind of region, but I've lived in different neighborhoods, different kind of even different cities within the same region.
Yeah.
And I've lived on I've lived on I believe two that were on one of my moon local space lines, and it went quite well. I've lived on one that I believe was on a can't remember which one it was, so scratch it. But then I've lived on two more that were on my Neptune local space line. One of them where I'm living now, but I will be moving soon, luckily. Um, but one of them was on my Neptune. Two of them were on my Neptune line, and were just not not good. Like have not been as good. And Neptune is in fall in my chart. Neptune is in a weaker sign in my chart. So for me, Neptune local space lines are difficult. And um yeah, Neptune could look like issues with boundaries, could look like feeling stuck. And I've definitely experienced that in these two locations, especially the one before this one. So even with neighborhoods, we could choose like, okay, um, where is the neighborhood that I should exercise in? Look at the Mars local space line. Where should I study? Look at the Mercury local space line. Where should I socialize? Look at the Sun or Jupiter local space line. It's so interesting. You could really find a lot. You could find a lot of, and I use it now that my partner and my fiance and I, we're going to be moving. We use this to plan the move. Like I looked into my local space lines, his, that even I used feng shui with like the house number. Like I'm very into this stuff because I really feel like it's accurate. Like even house numbers, like some house numbers when I've lived in certain numbers that are more stagnant, I'm like, I feel it. It feels stuffy.
Oh wow! Yeah, there's so much, and Amanda says, it has to be very rewarding work with what
Yeah,
you're
it definitely
doing.
is. It definitely is. I mean, I think a lot of my clients, like, they leave with a lot of clarity and a lot of guidance and just feeling more confident about their moves. And yeah, because I think intuitively we do know that energetically, some places are more supportive than others. But sometimes we're a bit scared to branch out and do something different because it's intimidating, because you have to think there is the spiritual side, But then there's the practical side with like visas and residency permits and oh the taxes and finding a job and this and that, and oh if you want to start a business, can you even legally register a business there? Like it could be a lot, but
Yeah.
I think astrocartography helps you narrow it down so much, you know? And it's a component that shouldn't be overlooked at all, in my opinion, especially when it comes to moving.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just so fascinated by this. This is this is absolutely amazing. And obviously we don't want to be going on forever there because I feel you could be talking forever
I, I'm a
and
bit of I'm a bit of a yapper.
oh no, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I could sit here listening to you forever about that. But as you know, I do angel oracle card readings and guided meditations, and each week I like to ask my guests what they would like. But before I get to that, I was chatting with Isabel earlier, and we're going to show you a little bit of how it works using my birth sign to give anyone watching who's not heard of astrocartography before a chance to see how it works and what it looks like.
Yep.
So,
So I'm gonna pull up your, so you said you wanted to host a retreat, am I right?
I want to move there. Want to live there. That's going to be my retreat property.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna compare where you currently are to where I think within your same country, which would where I think could be suitable for a retreat. Okay, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna share the screen. Okay, sorry, let me.
that's okay. Um, let's
Right there.
get
Okay, can you see?
we are just going in now. Yep, it's tiny, but we can see these
I'll
lines
zoom in.
going down and that way, and
So okay, so right now you're here, more or
yeah.
less. You're like a bit east of London.
Hmm.
Um, and you are very, very, very close to your Neptune ascendant line. And so, as we talked about before, as we discussed before, Neptune is the traditional ruler of Pisces. The modern ruler of Pisces is Jupiter. As an evolutionary astrologer, I acknowledge both planets as the rulers. I think they're both very influential. And so, and Pisces is the 12th sign, and therefore is the default ruler of the 12th house. The 12th house rules over spirituality, spiritual pursuits, the metaphysical world, because it's the world of the unseen, things that are not very tangible. Um, uh, as well as on there, every sign, every house has its darker side, has its more challenging side. It is also the house of isolation and endings and kind of self undoing. Um, but being that it's on your ascendant, which is the angle that has to do with yourself and your identity, being a spiritual person, being spiritual and kind of in this world in like in a very on a very invested deep level is like a part of your identity. And it makes sense with what you do. So I think this has been a good place to really build your foundations and really get to know yourself. Um but eventually Neptune lines for some people eventually could feel a bit like kind of cruise control.
Right,
like
yeah.
like a bit like okay, like things are going, things are flowing, but it's like it doesn't feel like a catalyst. And you might, when you move, you might want somewhere that kind of feels more, that changes things up, that shakes things up. Is that more or less kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, kind of like taking it to the next level, I suppose.
Yeah. So here in the UK, if you could see, when we go north, I like kind of like, let's zoom, like Isle, is this Isle of Skye? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
yeah, so here I really like that this kind of island peninsula thing, yeah, is in between for to move and to eventually host a retreat. I really like that it's in between your moon descendant line and your sun midheaven line. Why? Because so your moon, like I said before, is in Taurus. The moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus. So that means that a moon line for you would most likely feel very, very good because your moon is in the highest sign that it could be in, the strongest sign that it could be in, right?
Mm,
Um, and the descendant line, the descendant angle rules relationships, partnerships, and so this could be a place where where you develop very like close, heartfelt connections. That's what I've experienced on my moon descendant line. Um, where you really kind of get into more genuine relationships. It may not be like quantity, but it's quality. You get what I'm saying?
yeah.
Deep, close, heartfelt connections. So I'm seeing that. And I'm also seeing with the sun midheaven line that, and then your sun is in which house? I want to see in your chart. It's in the, yeah, oh my God. It's great. Yes, it's in the 11th house of the chosen community. And so being on that sun line on the midheaven angle could really, really very well activate both recognition and getting people to notice you more and gaining more recognition, but also just like immersion in community and meeting like-minded people. So I think this location, because it brings you right in between the two, Sky, Isle of Sky, could be a really, or just anywhere within those two lines
Yeah.
could be really, really good. I know it's quite north, but
It is, yeah, and you have to get I think you might have to get a ferry across or something.
yeah. And then both of them cross over. Is this Northern Ireland? Yeah. And both of
Yeah,
them cross over Northern Ireland as well. So that could also be right here. They kind of intersect. So that could also be a potential place. But I don't know if you want to leave. I know it's Northern Ireland is the UK, but I don't know if you want to leave like the main island. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know.
who knows? I know that I'll be guided to the right place, but it's, it's fascinating to see where there are the possibilities that I could actually I could actually go. Yeah, it just goes to show, and interesting that where I live now, I've kind of like moved this way, and I was actually born near it as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think where you are now is pretty good, but I feel like up north, like those two lines for you, being that you've got sun in the 11th house, being that you've got your moon in Taurus in the 7th house, I think it could be I think it could be what's it called? I think it could be really, really quite supportive for you, that location.
Yes, and if my friend Jackie is watching this, she will be going, "Yes, I can finally get her up to Scotland," because she lives she's up that way, and she's uh, uh, quite often wants me to move up there. So it's interesting that that shows up that way. I think I'm definitely going to have to book you in to do a full proper reading for me, because this is just so fascinating. I'd love to find out all the other aspects and everything um, that are there. So yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And Amanda has said, um, arts and entertainment, adventure and sciences. Would that be New York City and LA in the US? I don't know what that means.
I mean, it depends. Does she mean for herself? You would need to know the your birth info. You need
Right.
to know your birth info. It might be for some people LA might be better, for some people New York might be better, but it depends on their own birth chart and their birth info. I would have to see where do the lines overlay in those places for you or whoever needs that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want to be a bit more clearer, Amanda, as to whether you're looking at the, or whether you're just in general, is that why those places relate to those um, things? It could. I suppose, yeah. Actually, the man's mentioned that. I suppose if you look at where certain areas are, like Silicon Valley and Hollywood, etc., if you were to, get look at there when they were birthed, technically.
Yeah, because cities and countries have birth charts. Cities and countries have birth charts. They actually do. Cities and countries do have birth charts. And so you could see, like, especially if you look like the birth chart of the United States, it makes a lot of sense. If you look at the birth chart of Italy, I've looked at for different countries, it makes a lot of sense. Um and yeah, but in terms of like it's hard to know, like, which location is better for art, sciences, entertainment, because it really, for a specific person, because it really depends on the person and their birth info. I would need their birth info, their birth chart, to know for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes that makes perfect sense. So you've done a little reading for me. So I'm going to do a card reading for you and everyone watching anyway, because I like doing the cards anyway. And
Oh, oracle, right?
Oracle cards, yeah. Yeah. So when I do the Oracle cards, I do the cards for what you need to know for your highest good at this moment in time. Because even though I work with the past, with past life regression, etc., that's to learn and heal from your past so it doesn't affect you in the present. And when I take people into the future, it's so they can learn, understand, and know about their future so it doesn't affect them in the present. So it all comes back to the here and now. So, what does Isabel and everyone who's watching this need to know for their highest good at this moment in time? Isabel, everyone who's watching this needs to know for their highest good at this moment in time. Okay. So, well, actually, let's do that again because some cards fell out. So let's go. I didn't feel that was right, and I reckon that card will definitely come out. Okay, so we got grounding. Go deep, explore your roots, which is absolutely fascinating. Because obviously, it is saying to you, Isabel, and those watching, you need to go deep and explore your roots. But for you, Isabel, it's also saying with what you're doing, you can look at, using the astrocartography and the astrology goes into your roots, where you come from.
Yeah, I like how that intersects, huh?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So, it's confirmation with what you're doing, and it's also saying, and what you're doing, explore your roots, or ground in where you're going, in what you're doing, and see where you've come from and where you can go. And again, for everyone watching, grounding is so important. And when you start going deeper into things and you start exploring your roots, you get more and more information, and the fact that you do all of this, you look at all different aspects rather than just astrocartography or just astrology, and you bring them all together, really shows how deep you can go with people, which is absolutely amazing, and confirmation that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, which I
Yeah.
think is absolutely brilliant.
Love
um,
that.
I love that so much. So, Isabel, do you have any insights or thoughts or last words of wisdom to leave our viewers?
Um, yeah, I guess, if you're thinking about moving or just, getting out of your comfort zone, I think astrocartography could be an invaluable tool, and don't overlook it, but also always follow your intuition. always follow your intuition, always follow your inner guide above all else. I always say that. Go with
Yeah,
what really, really resonates and what feels right for you.
beautiful. Thank you so much. So I hope everyone you've enjoyed this conversation and found it insightful, because I know I definitely have, and we probably could have gone on here forever. But if people want to connect with you, Isabel, how do they do that? And do you have anything coming up at the moment, or have you got any free gifts, offers to share? Anything you want to tell us about yourself and where we can find you?
Yeah. If anyone wants to find me, they can do so through my website. First of all, yourstellartruthastrology.com. I don't know if you might link it or something.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll put the links directly afterwards.
To book, I do offer, astrocartography sessions, as well as regular birth chart readings. I have packages as well. And I also do offer a free 20-minute consultation call, where I could do like a little bit of astrocartography so you could kind of get a taste of what it's like. And those are free. And then if you want to learn more, then you can book a full one. So that's definitely a good idea. Um, and then also I am on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Substack. I write a bi-weekly Substack about astrocartography. It's free, at least for now. Um, and it's very in depth, and you could learn a lot by reading it. And what do I have coming up? Okay, I don't have any events coming up in the immediate future, but I'm planning on co-hosting an event with a expat coach in the next 2 weeks. So I will keep that on my Instagram and my Substack. And I have a new it's currently free, a digital product. It's an astrocartography workbook and journal. And it also has a free move abroad guide within it. And you can, when you go on my website, there's a pop-up where you can enter your email and then receive a download copy of it in PDF. So that is www.yourstellartruthastrology.com. So yeah.
Beautiful. I will put that in the links and the comments. And Janeki says, brilliant talk. Thank you both.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Ernie, nope, it was great for you to join us, and I hope you've learned a lot for this. And take up Isabel on her free 20-minute consultation and book a full one with her. You might get some really good insights
Yeah,
from.
yeah, no need to apologize at all. Like, happy for the support.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Isabel, for sharing your wisdom. It has been absolutely amazing. And thank you for doing that brief look at my astrocartography for me. And of course, for anyone watching, if you are ready to connect more deeply with your soul's purpose and you're feeling the nudge to heal, grow, and align with the life that you were born to live, then I'd love to support you. You can now join the waitlist for my Soul Path Discovery Program, which is a transformative journey for those of you ready to clear your old patterns, connect with your soul's wisdom, and step forward with clarity and confidence. And you can book a free soul path discovery call by messaging me direct to explore your path and see if it's the right fit when space becomes available. And of course, I also have a couple of incredible free gifts for you designed to help you connect more deeply with your angels and guides and explore your future. So check out the link in the comments after the show to grab yours. And I'd like to again thank you everyone so much for watching, and for Ernie, Janeki and Amanda for taking the time to actually comment for us. And of course, I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more people who feel lost, want to get clear on their destiny just like you. And, hearing about astrocartography could really help them. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe. It is free to my channel, and hit that bell button to be notified when the show goes live, or I post new guided meditations. And remember, every time you like, share, comment, subscribe to anything I offer, anything my guests, have out there, any social media they're on, you're really helping get this message out that allows people to take charge of their destiny, so they can live a better life for themselves and those around them. And you are part of that when you share, subscribe, like, comment on any of our work. So thank you everyone so much. Again, thank you, Isabel, and I look forward to seeing you all same time, same place next week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.